Hello everyone, I'm Santosh Kumar and many of you are watching our Science and Technology series for preliminary examination on YouTube. This year we're running everything on YouTube. I have already completed space technology, nuclear science and technology, and now I want to jump to biotechnology. But before I do that, I want all of you to cover basics of biology. You may do it from NCERT, or I have requested Sonia ma'am that she will take some classes on biology basics, which will not only be relevant for your preliminary examination preparation, but would make it easy for me to cover biotechnology through when students have basic understanding, it becomes easier for me to cover biotechnology in a proper manner. So before I start biotech, please finish these classes. If you have done biology at your own, you may skip it, but I would recommend एक बार चाहे double speed पे just go through it, complete it, and then we'll start biotechnology classes. Thank you very much.
आज से पहले बायो किसने पढ़ी है? वेरी फ्यू. 9th क्लास में तो पढ़ी होगी. याद नहीं है. अच्छा, क्वेश्चन को थोड़ा चेंज करते हैं. बायो पसंद किसको है? There are quite good number of hands. Good. Again another question. किसको लग रहा है ये लेक्चर यूजलेस है? सेल वाला जो टॉपिक है यूजलेस है. लग रहा है तुमने तो पढ़ी हुई है इसलिए लग रहा है. इसलिए लग रहा है. और किसी को जो कॉमर्स या फिर आर्ट्स बैकग्राउंड से उनको लग रहा है किसी को? एक्चुअल में नहीं है. अगर बैक में जाओगे तो बहुत सारे PYQs ऑलरेडी गिवन है. So every year UPSC tends to ask 1 to 2 questions either directly or indirectly from this part, cells और tissues. अगर डायरेक्टली नहीं आया तो इनडायरेक्टली कैसे आएगा? जैसे बायोटेक्नोलॉजी की एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड आएगा. तो अगर बायोटेक्नोलॉजी आपको समझना है उसके लिए पहले आपको सेल समझना पड़ेगा. ओके, तो सेल का प्रोसेस कैसे होता है, हाउ डज इट वर्क एंड हाउ डज इट फंक्शन, और उस फंक्शन को हम ह्यूमंस अपने इंटरेस्ट के लिए कैसे मैनिपुलेट करते हैं. ओके, so what happens is, how do you structure the cell, how does it function, and we humans have a tendency to work everything. We want the world or the nature to work according to us, and we have a tendency to manipulate it, right? In every aspect of life, we have a tendency to manipulate it because we want it to work according to our own needs. And that is what is biotechnology, where we engineer cells or change cells so that it can work according to our needs. So before that, you need to understand what actually cell is. And before that, you need to understand what actually life is. Okay, so all of this comes to an end called as life. Okay, so biology is, which many of you already know, it's bio plus logy, that is study of life. So everything which you see around us, is it living? No, definitely no. If you are sitting on the moon and from there if you are viewing Earth, so everything around you is not, or everything you see from moon is not living. Means there are certain components which are living, there are certain components which are non-living. So there is a distinction between life, that is living, and non-living, which in technical words you say as biotic and abiotic. So there are lots of technical words in biology which are quite very easy if you understand the meaning of the word. Okay, terminology is the basic part in biology. If you understand the basic meaning of the term, it's very easy. It's like your normal life. Okay, so bio means life. So everything you see around yourself can be distinguished into living and non-living. Now, how do you distinguish it, whether something is living or something is non-living, right? We usually tend to see the outer criteria. Outer criteria means the physical appearance. Okay, so if something is growing, that means it is living for us. If something has a structure, a body, which grows over the period of time, which responds to something, is living, right? So for living, you have certain characteristics which are given on the first page of your notes. And the first characteristic or the foremost characteristic is metabolism. Means that is internal characteristic which you cannot see even outside sometimes. That means all the chemical reactions which are taking place in your body are happening in a body naturally. See, metabolism happens in a test tube also, means chemical reactions takes place in a test tube also. But the ones which are naturally on their own, that means spontaneously it is happening, then it is living. So if I say that all organisms does metabolism, is it true or not? Yes. And if I say everything which does metabolism is living organism, just said test tube. In a test tube, chemical reaction is happening. Cannot say reverse. Everything which is living does metabolism, but everything where metabolism is there, you cannot say it is living. Okay, so for living, one of the foremost characteristic is metabolism. Second foremost characteristic for being a living entity is cell. Okay, so cell is the basic structure, is the lowest most structure which any living entity needs to have if it wants to survive on its own. Okay, so it needs to have cellular structure. What exactly is cellular structure? That's the agenda of our today's lecture. Next is, that is growth. Every living organism usually show growth. Do you show growth at this age? Height is growing? No. So growth can be there, it cannot be there. You cannot say that unlimited growth will happen. Or in biology terms, we say open-ended growth. But yes, growth is happening in you. Cells are growing, your hair is growing, nails are growing. So growth is there, doesn't mean in terms of height it will grow. Okay, so there is growth which is happening, but it is not the definite characteristic of being a living entity. Next is reproduction. Reproduction, every living organism reproduce, they procreate to make another living organism of their own kind. So reproduction is another characteristic, but again, it is not the definite characteristic. Why? Because there are sterile worker bees in honeybees, or there are sterile individuals also in humans also who cannot reproduce. So you cannot say the person who cannot reproduce is non-living. So again, not a definite characteristic. Next is the last, the another two is response to stimuli. So if I give you a stimulus, that means if I am speaking here something, you are responding to it. How you are responding to it? By hearing, by processing the thoughts. So you have a stimulus, right? Next is homeostasis. What do you mean by homeostasis? There are two words here, homeo and stasis. What is stasis? Stasis means something static, means which is not changing. For example, if you go outside right now, so temperature is very low. So if temperature is very low, your body is adjusting your temperature to come at your body temperature, your ideal temperature. And if temperature is very high, you sweat, you release out heat so that you can cool your body. So that is called as homeostasis, means your body is maintaining the normal physiological condition in terms of pH, in terms of temperature, in terms of anything else, acidity or something, right? So that is called as homeostasis. So it's not like you have to cram these things. It is just for understanding part. Okay, a larger picture. Now, when I see this larger picture, I said that there are cells, and cells is the basic unit of life. Again, if I say you are an organism, organism means if I generally take an organism as human being, right? So if I see a human being, individual, so I call it as organism. Now this organism performs lots of functions. What kind of functions? Digestion, respiration, reproduction, excretion. We are performing lots of functions, right? And all these functions has to be done by certain systems. So for every function, we have a specialized system within us. For example, for digestion, we have digestive system. For respiration, we have respiratory system. What are their functions? For normal working of your body, you are eating food. So that food is required to give you energy. And that energy, how you will get it? By burning the food. For example, in your normal life, you have coal. Coal has lots of energy in it. But how do you get that energy, that heat energy? By burning it, by combusting it. And how do you do that combustion in the presence of oxygen? You need gas for burning it. So what we are doing is we are eating food for digestion, and via respiratory system we are taking oxygen. So by digestive system we are taking food, by respiratory system we are taking oxygen. This oxygen is used to burn this food to get energy. So we have two systems here, two aspects here. Next, when this will be burnt, there will be certain byproducts which will be formed in the body, right? So you need excretory system for that. You need excretory system for that, right? Again, another thing, when we have a large body, this food or this oxygen has to be transported across the body, right? So you need certain transporting system also, because when you ate food, it went to your intestine, but it didn't went to your feet, right? So you need certain transporting mechanism. When you breathe in oxygen, you need certain mechanism that oxygen reaches to every part of the body. So again, the transporting mechanism is through circulatory system, right? Another thing is the complete body structure has to be maintained in the same shape, means structure has to remain same. We are not like amoeba, every time changing our shapes. So we need certain mechanism so that our structure remains same, and supportive system is there. So again, you have skeletal system for that. Why I'm telling you all these things is because in cell also it is everything similar there. Okay, all these systems are present in the cell also. Okay, next is, again, for this structure to remain maintained, we have to have locomotion, because when we are getting food, we have to go, we have to move, we have to show movement of our hands. So we need to move from one place to another. So again, we have locomotory structures for that. Next is we have reproductory structures for procreation. So there are lots of structures which are present in the body. So organism is made up of organ system, and each organ system is further made up of several organs. For example, digestive system, if I take, it is made up of mouth, your food pipe, stomach, intestine, right? Same way respiratory system is made up of several organs. So organ system is made up of organs, and these organs are made up of a collection of cells which is helping it to work. For example, you have mouth. So in mouth you have muscles. So you have muscular tissue here. On the muscles there is covering also. So you have another kind of tissue which is working for covering. We'll be discussing it tomorrow. Okay. So I'm not introducing the terminology, but the basic part. Then you have several nerves also, which helps you to identify what kind of work it is doing. For example, your tongue works like a sense organ, which helps you to taste the food. So there is sensory part, neurons must be there, nerve cells must be there, blood supply is there. Nowadays, facial yoga is becoming very popular for increasing the blood supply, right? So several tissues are there in your single organ. So organs are made up of tissues. Further, these tissues are made up of cells. Now, cells are made up of what? To know whether why a cell is a fundamental unit of life, we should understand what are cells made up of. What? Speak loudly. Organelles, and organelles are made up of molecules. Somebody said molecules. That is biomolecules. What are biomolecules? What are biomolecules? Must have heard it. Okay, when in your 6th class or 7th class, or even your parents, when they ask you to have a balanced diet, what they ask you to have? Carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, right? All these things. These are biomolecules. Okay, and your body, your cell is made up of these biomolecules. For example, your hair is made up of keratin protein, right? Your skin is made up of keratin protein. So your body is made up of proteins. In balanced diet, do you include nucleic acids? Am I not audible? Maybe because of mic. Okay. Now, do you include nucleic acid? Not audible? सर एक बार देखना वॉइस नहीं आ रही है बच्चों को. थोड़ी वॉइस बढ़ा दीजिए. माइक अलग लगाना है. Am I audible now? Perfectly fine? Okay. So where were we? Do you include nucleic acids? बचपन में तो कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स, लिपिड्स, न्यूक्लिक एसिड तो पढ़ा ही नहीं, राइट? मिनरल्स, विटामिन्स तक भी पढ़ा था. यस, न्यूक्लिक एसिड्स आर आल्सो द पार्ट ऑफ योर फूड. जब मम्मी घर में खाना बनाती है, शी डजंट रिमूव न्यूक्लिक एसिड. दे आर सेल्स, whether vegetarian or non-vegetarian diet, nucleic acids are the part of your food, and yes, you eat them, those DNAs of plants or animals, and those help you to make your own DNAs. Okay, so these are biomolecules. Now, these biomolecules are not capable of independent existence. If I accumulate these biomolecules in any organization, they are not capable of independent existence. For example, viruses. Viruses are made up of two components, proteins and nucleic acids, but they are not capable of independent existence. What do you mean by independent existence? Is that yes, it cannot exist on its own. Means it cannot perform all these functions which we have enlisted now on its own. Means it is dependent upon some other entity for its existence. So therefore, biomolecules or aggregation or small aggregation of biomolecules are not independent, capable of independent existence. Done. So therefore, we call cells as the fundamental, functional, structural unit of life. Okay. So cells are called as fundamental, structure, function unit of life. Now question is, how does cell work? How does cell work? Just close these handouts for time being. We'll have fun for 15 minutes. Close these handouts for 15 minutes. See, every cell of your body is working like a factory. Okay, when you start an institution, when you start a factory, okay, what do? You organize certain things. For example, if you start a food processing industry, a common example is GS3. So what do? Any factory, let's start a factory. There is a cell, outer boundary. You create a boundary, right? You take land, right? Then Raw material lenge. Okay, raw material will come from outside, right? Okay, next. Infrastructure. Somebody said infrastructure. Infrastructure में सबसे पहले, when you start your own company or when you start your factory, you want a secret place, a safe place where you can keep all your documents, essential documents, right? You cannot keep them lying outside. So you want a certain safe space for all your documents, which is accessible only to you, nobody else. It's not like anyone can come there. So what happens is there is a safe space here also. Let's make a chamber like this. Okay, which is called as control center. Let's call it a control center from where you will control everything. All right. Okay. Done. Let's call it a control center, and you will be keeping all your information here, right? Let's keep the information also here at a. अब किससे हो रहा है? Okay. Let's call it as a control center where you'll keep all your secret information, all the information documents which are very personal, very private to you, very private to your own institution. Next thing is you will have a production center where every production will happen. So again, let's make a production center, a production chain. So this is the production center. This is a production area where all the production will be happening. Next is after production, what you will be doing? Directly storage, packaging. Somebody said packaging. Yes, we'll do certain modifications if required, and after that we'll do packaging. For example, you made food processing industry for juice. So if you want to have certain processing, afterwards processing, or add some sugar or flavor, you'll do that, certain modifications, and then you will do packaging. So again, another area which will do this job, that is packaging or modification. Next, once packaging is done, storage or transport. Then you will do transport. Transport where? To outside, right? To outside. Next, another someone said storage area also. Let's make a storage area also. Anything else which you need in a factory? Electricity, power. So same way in your cell also you will need certain powerhouse which will be providing energy all the time. Anything else? Disposal system. यही सारे systems किए थे. We just did all these systems: digestion, respiration, right? We need a excretory system also, disposal system also. So there is another body which does all the disposal system also. And if any raw material comes from outside, anything which comes from outside, it will break it down. Okay, so that it can be used in its own way. So let's name them one by one. So this outer boundary, since it's a cell, so it is called as cell membrane. This space, the blank space, the green space which you see, it is cytoplasm. Cyto means anywhere you see the word cyto means cell, and plasm is that fluid area. Okay, then it is called as cytoplasm. Now, since it is cytoplasm, can I call this boundary as plasma membrane also? So, cell membrane can also be called as plasma membrane, right? This control center, it's the head space where head will sit, all the important documents will be there. So what do you call a technical term for head or chief or apex position? That is nucleus, right? It's the center point, it's the nucleus of the cell. Okay, next, this production center where production will take place. Production can be of proteins, it can be of fats, that is lipids. Fats in biology terms is called as lipids. Proteins which are necessary for your structure and functioning of the body. So two kind of productions can be taking place, that is of protein and another is of lipids. Now for proteins, you have a separate entity which makes proteins, and that entity is called as ribosome. Now ribosome can be found in two forms. One can be free. So ribosome are these 8-like structures. It can be freely found in the cell, scattered anywhere, so that it can freely make protein. It can also be found here on the production sites, on these production sites. Okay, now how do you understand this? For example, in factory, if you need something for your internal functioning, for example, your employees are there, you need food for them, juice for them, they'll also drink, and you need maximum part for sending out also. So both the stuffs are required for inside as well as for outside. For inside, these free ribosome will work. For outside transport, the one which are present here, they will work. Now this network, this complete network is like a net or a meshwork present. In biology terms, for a meshwork, we use a word reticula. We use a word reticula. Where this reticula is present? In the plasma, cytoplasm. In the plasma, this reticula is present. So can I call it as endoplasmic reticulum? A reticulum which is present inside the plasma. So the name is endoplasmic reticulum. Now, on this endoplasmic reticulum, you see certain areas where you have these ribosomes and they appear like dot-like structure which are present on the endoplasmic reticulum. So the texture of this will be rough. If you see on the top, there is a flat surface and on which bead-like structure is present. So from the top, you will see it as rough. So you call them as rough endoplasmic reticulum because over the surface of these endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes are present. What is the function of ribosomes? To produce protein. So what is the function of rough endoplasmic reticulum? To make protein, indirectly to make protein. If ribosome is making protein and ribosomes are present on the surface of endoplasmic reticulum, that means that this RER is also functioning for protein, and this surface is appearing smooth. There's no bead-like structure which is studded on it. So you call this structure as smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And this smooth endoplasmic reticulum is important for the production of lipids, fats. How do you remember it? Lipids are, texture is very smooth, slimy. So smooth endoplasmic reticulum is for production of lipids. Rough endoplasmic reticulum is for the production of proteins. Done? Now, these smooth endoplasmic reticulum, lipid production, and rough endoplasmic reticulum, protein production, right? Both these productions are taking place. Now, when you want to send it outside, you want to modify it, so that external environment doesn't get degraded. For example, when you have juice, when you freshly make juice at your home, do you add preservatives to it? No. Do you do packaging of it? No. But when you have to send it somewhere else where its shelf life has to increase, you'll add certain preservatives, certain flavoring agents, you'll package it. Same way, if I have to send these lipids or proteins outside, then I'll have to add these things also. So I need to do certain modifications and packaging. For that, we made a certain other body that is called as Golgi bodies or Golgi capsules. Now, see, Golgi bodies, there's no meaning in this term. It's named after a scientist, Camillo Golgi. Just like we had the meaning for cytoplasm, plasma membrane, endoplasmic reticulum. There's no meaning to this thing. Okay, next, then we'll have to transport it outside, and these are called as secretory vesicles. These are called as secretory. It has secreted it, expelled it. So they are called as secretory vesicles. Done up to here. Now these structures from here, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi body, and these bodies, secretory vesicles, they are working for intracellular transport from one place. They helped in making the components like proteins and lipids, and they are helping it to transport outside. Right. Now, next thing is when the raw material, anything, it can be raw material, it can be unwanted agents also. There can be certain unwanted things which enter into your body or your system. You want to kill it, destroy it, right? Or if it's a wanted structure, unpackage it, right? So anything which comes from out to inside, it has to be broken down. Let's say proteins, let's say carbohydrates, let's say nucleic acids, anything which come, it has to be broken down. For breaking it down, you need certain chemicals, and these chemicals are called as enzymes. And these are present in another body which are called as lysosome. Now again, there's a meaning to this word. Zome means any body, any spherical structure, any body is called as zome. Lyso means, the word means breakdown, breaking. When I say cell lysis, means breaking of cell. So lysosome means the structure, the body, which contains certain chemicals which are important for breaking down. Okay, breaking down of anything, any component. Okay, so it will contain certain chemicals which are necessary for breaking down of certain chemicals. Done. Then we had a storage part. The storage part is called as vacuole, anything which can be stored here. Then we had powerhouse. Powerhouse is called as mitochondria. Then there are other bodies also, for example, centrioles. There are other secretory vesicles that are present inside the cell and works according to their function, which are not much necessary for UPSC. But we have included the cytoskeleton, etc. Okay, done up to here. Understood? Any doubt? We have almost done the 15 pages, concise it into a 15 minutes part, I guess more than 15 minutes, right? Now what we can do is, we'll go to the PDF and understand each part. So we have already done this, that your body, any organism, it is made up of organ system, and organ systems are made up of organs further are made up of tissues, cells, biomolecules, and atom. And this entity here is able to work. this entity is capable of independent existence. Now, below this, there are other things which are given. You as an individual is an organism, but when you collaborate with other individuals which are of same kind means you are human and you are interacting with other humans. So if I take group of humans, same species, that is called as population. That is called as population. So in an area, there can be population of humans, there can be population of cats, dogs, other organisms like plants, mango tree, right? So there can be population, and population include individuals of same species. Now, several populations again interact. For example, population of humans interact with population of cats or dogs or plants like mango tree. That is called as community. So multiple organisms in a group can be called as population. Multiple population can be called as community. And this community, lots of communities of different kind of organisms, when interact with a non-living component like air, water, soil, abiotic structures, then it is called as ecosystem. So ecosystem, when you learn the definition, it's the interaction of living and non-living component. Okay, so that is ecosystem. Ecosystem can be a pond. In pond there is water, fishes, grasses, etc., aquatic plants. So that is a ecosystem. And when I see several ecosystems on earth, for example, forest, sea, ocean, pond, lakes, so these are several ecosystems. One of that you'll learn in wetlands also, right? That is again an ecosystem. So several ecosystems together make a biosphere that is capable of creating life on earth. So this part of this complete organization you will be doing in environment. This is not the part of science and tech. I just gave you a wide angle view that how do you see earth. So when you see earth, there are several components, there are several interactions which are taking place among different organisms, and this interaction you will be studying in environment part, and this which is happening inside one single individual, that you will be studying in science and tech part. Next is cell, the fundamental unit of life. We have already done this, almost all the part we have done this. We'll do it in more detail. I just gave you a overview that what is cell, what are its components. Each component will pick one by one and do. So cell is a fundamental and structural unit of life, functional unit of life, because below it any entity cannot carry its function on its own. Next is why it is called fundamental, because of independent existence. Anything below it cannot make a complete structure. Example is viruses. We'll do other entities also at the end of this document. Next is who discovered cell for the first time. In 1665, an individual named as Robert Hooke, he observed cork cell. What do you mean by cork? It's a outer layer of the tree, bark of the tree, and he observed it under the microscope, the handheld microscope he made at that time, and he saw some hexagon structures which he called as cell. Next is the discovery of living cell. So cork was a dead cell. Then living cell was discovered by Anton von Leeuwenhoek. You don't have to remember these names again. These are given in NCERT, so it's my duty to include them, but you don't have to cram these names. Okay, just keep them in memory. There were certain individuals. Next is discovery of nucleus was done by Robert Brown, and the term protoplasma was given by Perkins. Next is the cells in our atmosphere or in our environment or in our body exist in various shapes. So in our environment, when you see certain microorganisms, their cell shape can be very different. For example, there are certain bacteria which are spherical in shape. There are certain bacteria which are oblong in shape, rectangular in shape. There are different shapes for cells. Inside your body also, there are various types of shapes which are present. For example, your muscle cell, the smooth muscle cell, it is spindle shape. This shape is called as spindle, which is broad from center and tapering at the edges. Next is blood cells, which are almost spherical in shape. There can be nerve cells, which has very different shape and difficult to describe because it's spherical on one end and then a very long tubular structure on the other end. Then there is fat storage cells, which are again spherical, and another cells like sperms, which have a long tubular structure called as flagella. So there can be various shapes of cells. Next is, you have done one thing, that is nucleus. Nucleus is the control center. We said all the files, all the important documents which are necessary for your body, which are necessary for the working of your cell, are kept in nucleus. So that nucleus must have evolved. We are not like बस आज कंपनी स्टार्ट हो गई सबसे पहले वही डॉक्यूमेंट बनाया. It must have evolved over the period of time. It's not like at the first stage only you have created a space, separate space where all the documents are kept, right? So during the course of evolution, what has happened? The cells initially used to store their components or information, important information, just like that, without any boundary, without any safety space, without any walls around it. And this kind of nucleus is primitive. Can you say it is very old age, which is not reliable today because there is no safety to the information? If you want to put your information today, you keep a password, right? So there is no wall here which provides safety to the information. So this nucleus, in biotic or biology language, there's a term for it, karya. Karya means nucleus. It's karyotic. Okay, another phrase for it is karyotic. But this karyotic or this karya is primitive in nature. It's not very advanced because it is lacking that membrane outside it. So we call such type of cells as prokaryotic. Okay, because they do not have outer membrane. If they have outer membrane, just like the cell we made, this kind of membrane, and all the information is lying here, it is advanced. It is true nucleus because nucleus has to have walls around it. So for true in biology, there is a word called as U, and you call them as eukaryotic. So there are two types of cells, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Prokaryotic means which have primitive nucleus, which do not have its genetic material in an enclosed space of membranes. So can you say that prokaryotic cell is like a cottage industry where there's no wall separations in the production center or storage center? Just like in a room we have started a company and all the production is happening at the same place, storage is also happening at the same place, packaging also happening at the same place. So there is no partition, there are no walls created, means there are no membranes just we saw in the previous part. So such cells are primitive cells and these are prokaryotic cells. What are the features of it? that their nucleus will be primitive. It won't be having membranes. It won't be having another specialized bodies which we have seen just now in the previous cell, which are present in eukaryotic cell but not here, called as cell organelles. Endoplasmic reticulum, no ribosome. Ribosome is there, no Golgi apparatus, no lysosome, right? So they do not have separate structures. Means there is no outer boundary, there are no specialized areas. So no specific cell organelles, no proper nucleus, no membranes. DNA is just lying in the cytoplasm, and such DNA is called as nucleoid. Such DNA or such material is called as nucleoid. Understood? ज़्यादा हो गया क्या? सारे ऐसे थके हुए हो? टेस्ट भी दिया ना? हाँ? वो तो टेस्ट पीएमपी का हिस्सा है ना? Means PMP is about test, right? There are lots of tests. 4 tests, I guess, in a week. And in future, from January, you'll have one more. 5 tests in a week. जान ले लो हमारी है ना? यूपीएससी भी तो वही कर रहा है, right? Okay, coming back. So we have 2 types of cells, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Prokaryotic cells, they do not have proper nucleus, they do not have well-defined cell organelles. Their material is just lying there inside the plasma membrane. They'll have a plasma membrane, they'll have an outer membrane, but it won't be inside, there will be no segregation. Next, the genetic material is lying inside the cytoplasm only, which is called as nucleoid. They are primitive, and the examples of these primitive cells or organisms is bacteria and archaea. Archaea is another type of bacteria which are capable of living in extreme conditions. Once UPSC has asked question on it also. Highly saline condition, high temperature conditions. So these are bacteria which are specialized to survive in very extreme conditions. You'll do this in detail in diversity part, biological classification in environment. The different types of organisms on this earth, and all these organisms you'll be doing in that environment part. Next is prokaryotic cells. Since they are not so specialized, they are not able to interact with other cells, so they usually exist as unicellular organism. But yes, they can live in colonies, means several bacteria can live together. Okay, for example, if on your skin there are certain bacteria, they can live together and there can be colony of cells. For example, several humans live together, colony, but it is not like that is one single individual. So you cannot say it's a multicellular individual. All are acting independently, but in a colony. Okay. Next is prokaryotic cells are usually much smaller than eukaryotic cell, and even though their structure is simpler, there is immense metabolic conditions. All digestion, reproduction, excretion, everything is happening there. That's why they are existing independently. Now eukaryotic is on the reverse hand. They are larger in size. They'll have proper nucleus. They'll have proper cell organelles. Everything. Their nucleus is well organized also. Every function is specialized. Internal compartmentalization is there, just like we saw in the previous cell we made. Next is this table where I have concised the information, the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. Prokaryotic cell, there is no true nucleus. Eukaryotic cell, as the name say, eu means true, karya means nucleus, so it will have true nucleus. Though no membrane bound organelles, here there will be membrane bound organelles which we have listed also. small in size, larger in size. Their DNA is small, circular. Their DNA is linear, and don't worry about these terminologies. We'll do it in DNA part separately. Then ribosomes, which are the protein making structures. In case of prokaryotes, they are very small, 70s size, which is a notation which we give to sizes in ribosomes. And in eukaryotes, it 80s. Again, you don't have to remember, but yes, you need to remember that prokaryotic ribosomes are smaller than eukaryotic ribosomes. Example, bacteria, archaea, all the bacteria are included in prokaryotes. Then plant, animal, fungi, protists, they are the part of eukaryotes. Next is structure organization, which we have done already in very detail, that cells are capable of doing their functions like digestion, respiration, clearing up the waste material, everything. These organelles constitute the basic unit, and these organelles are found similar in your bodies. So usually all the organisms have these bodies, have these cells, and inside these cells, these organelles are functioning in a similar way. Next is three broad components which we have already done. A cell has an outer plasma membrane, a cytoplasm, and the nucleus. तुम लोगों की शक्लें देख के ना इतना तरस आ रहा है फिलहाल तो बेचारे बच्चे, सच में तरस आ रहा है। और लास्ट में वो दीपक बैठे, उसकी शक्ल देख के तो और तरस आ रहा है। फंस गए हो? हाँ, अब तो बायोलॉजी और बोरिंग लग रही है। हाँ, समझ आ रहा है पक्का? गर्मी लग रही है, ठंड लग रही है? मुझे तो बहुत गर्मी लग रही है, क्योंकि बोर्ड बहुत हीट छोड़ता है। मतलब ये तो मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है हीटर चल रहा है मेरे साथ में। शैल वी कंटिन्यू? क्योंकि अभी जो आने वाला है ये जस्ट ट्रेलर था। प्लाज्मा प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन जो है थोड़ा हैवी टॉपिक है। सो आई विल कंटिन्यू ओनली इफ यू आर इन फ्रेश माइंड। मुझे पता है लंबी क्लास हुई है, उसके बाद टेस्ट भी हुआ है, और ये सिर्फ एक वाइड एंगल व्यू दिया मैंने, सिर्फ एक जूम आउट कि तुम पढ़ने क्या वाले हो, कि भाई एक प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन है, एक साइटोप्लाज्म है, उसके अंदर एक न्यूक्लियस है, और ये सारी चीजें हैं जो तुम्हें पढ़नी है। अभी just now I have just listed the bullet points that you have to study all these things. I have not started yet. Okay, just now अगर ध्यान से देखोगे, I have just now introduced the content page. I have not gone into content. It's just a table of content which I have introduced. So now tell me. अच्छा रुक जाओ रुक जाओ रुक जाओ। I like your question. Good question. एक काम करते हैं, एक काम करते हैं, प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन कर लेते हैं फर्स्ट पार्ट, ठीक है? तो फर्स्ट पार्ट छोटा सा है, छोटा सा है, कर लेते हैं। सिर्फ आउटर बाउंड्री करते हैं, फैक्ट्री के अंदर अभी पहुंचते नहीं है। फैक्ट्री नहीं बनाते हैं अभी, प्रोडक्शन करेंगे। See, most of the things which will come in tomorrow's test and which is very, very important for UPSC, I've already done. You didn't get to know only. I've already done. I've already explained everything. I've introduced all the bodies. I've told all the functions, everything. Actual में, your 15-page document has been already done. It's just the need to read it. Secondly, plasma membrane, I know it's a heavy topic, and yes, most of the things are to be explained now. Okay, so plasma membrane कर ले. Okay, see, your factory or your cell had an outer membrane, outer wall. I'll not say wall because there is another one more structure which is termed as wall, or I'll say it's an outer boundary which is called as cell membrane. Now, this cell membrane is not very rigid. Rigid means it's not very hard. For example, in your factory also, in your house also, when you make walls, right? You do not keep hard walls. You'll put windows, you'll put doors so that things can come in and out. Same way, cell outer wall or the boundary is also not rigid, it is flexible. How it has been made flexible is because of two components it is made up of. It is made up of two components, that is lipids and कोई अच्छे जासूस होंगे ना तो अब तक समझ गए होंगे कि जो RER और SCR बना रहा था इसी के लिए बना रहा था boundary, right? So your outer boundary is made up of two components, lipids and proteins. Now this lipid is phospholipids. These are called as phospholipids because of a simple reason, they have a phosphate group attached to it. Okay, there's nothing else, no other reason. There's a phosphate group attached to lipids because of which they are called as lipids. Phospholipids. Phospho. Phospholipids. Now fats, lipids. Do they love water or they hate water? They hate water. They are hydrophobic in nature. Hate means a word for danger, that is phobia. And for water, it's hydro. So they are hydrophobic in nature. Means they do not interact with water. They do not interact with water. So lipids are hydrophobic in nature. They do not interact with water. They have a fatty acid chain which does not have any interaction with water. So what will happen when you keep, let's say this is a lipid, and when you put it in water, so what will happen? It will wrap around itself because it wants to go away from water. For example, if you are in a space which you don't like, you'll concise yourself. Same way lipids also do. Okay, same way lipids also do. They have a part which loves water and they have a part which do not love water. So what they'll do, they'll make a boundary like this. Means the part which loves water will be towards water and which doesn't love water will be away from water. So these are the parts which are water hating, or I say hydrophobic. These are the parts which love water, hydrophilic. So can I see two layers, one this and another this? There are two layers. So can I say that my plasma membrane, it is made up of two layers or bi-layered structure? Bi means 2. So it's a bilayered structure. Easy. So plasma membrane is bilayered structure. It is made up of lipids. These lipids, they fold in such a way that it makes 2 layers. So in detail, when I go for this structure looks like this, 2 layers. Now in the middle, there are certain gaps which you want to make. As I said, there should be doors, windows, something. In the middle, there are proteins. There are proteins which acts like channels and let the things in and out. Means there will be bilayer structure, and in the middle, at some places, there will be certain amount of proteins. Again, this structure, and in the middle there will be I'm not making like this. Okay. So made up of lipids and proteins. Lipids are arranged in a bilayered structure in which in the middle there are proteins which are present, and these proteins allows things to go in and out. Another important thing is that this bilayer structure, which is made up of fats or lipids, it is fluid in nature, just like oil. So it's very flexible in nature. So anything, if something is there which hates water, this lipid layer also hates water. If any other component comes which hates water, it will say, Aja, I'll allow you. So from lipid layer, that can be crossed because space ban jayega uske liye. But anything which loves water cannot cross this. So it has to go through these proteins. Done. So this is plasma membrane or cell membrane of a structure. This plasma membrane is fluid in nature. It is made up of lipids and proteins. So can I say this is mosaic of lipids and proteins? So this complete model is called as fluid mosaic model. So which model explains the structure of membrane? Fluid mosaic model. Why it is called fluid? Because it is very flexible in nature. Why it is called mosaic? Because it's mosaic of lipids and proteins. It is not made up of one single structure. Done. Now this layer, the outer layer, should it allow everything to come inside? No, it should be very selective in nature. So another property of this layer or this membrane is it is selectively permeable. What do you mean by permeability? Something which is able to cross. So it is selectively permeable. It allows only few things to come, or selectively few things to come inside and go. Done. So plasma membrane mein, again we have done few components. That cell membrane is the outermost covering. Done. Next, it allows or permits the entry or exit of few material, prevents movement of some other material, and that's why it is called as selectively permeable membrane. It is not the solid structure and is explained by fluid mosaic model made up of 2 layers of phospholipids and proteins are embedded in it. Cell membrane is described as lipid bilayers. There are 2 layers. Next is how does the transport occurs? Means a cell has to transport across this bilayer structure, and how does that transport occurs? So if there is a cell, this is membrane and this membrane is like this. So some transport has to occur in and out of it. Now this transport can be of 2 types. Some transport may need energy. and some may not. Simple. Okay, some transport across the membrane needs energy and some does not. Some does not means it do not require any energy. It will automatically, spontaneously it will flow. How it will spontaneously flow? मेट्रो में ट्रैवल किया है, भीड़ में, राजीव चौक, दरवाजा खुलता है, spontaneously you are out, spontaneously you are in. How it is described? Because of the number of people which are present inside and outside the metro. If there are lots of people inside the metro, doors will open and you will automatically go out from high concentration to low concentration area. And when people go out, number of people inside will be less. There will be lots of people lining outside and you will come inside high concentration to low concentration. So it's very easy without any energy to go from high concentration area to low concentration area. Does this require energy? No. So there is some where you do not need energy, and such transport is called as passive transport. There is some where you need energy. पढ़ने का मन नहीं है, पढ़ना है, you need energy. You want to sleep, but you have to sit and study, need energy, right? So where you need such transport, where you need is called as where you are actively doing something. Okay. So from passive transport, you will go from a area which is high concentration to spontaneously, automatically. But when you have to go from an area of low concentration to high concentration, you need energy. Done. For example, there's one process, let's say, if I light incense stick here. So the fragrance of incense stick or agarbatti will move spontaneously. Why? Because there is a high concentration at one point and low concentration at other point, and it will automatically move. Another example is, let's take a beaker of water, put a drop of ink, it will automatically mix, right? Such processes are called as diffusion. It is diffusion which is taking place. Diffusion can be of gases, diffusion can be of liquids also. Okay, so diffusion is movement of material from one place to another, or I'd say high concentration area to low concentration zone automatically. And there's no necessary any membrane or anything. Because when I gave example of incense stick, there is no membrane or a separation which is lying. Now let's say I keep a membrane something like this, which is a selectively permeable membrane, right? And water has to cross it from high concentration area to low concentration area. Such simple process is called as osmosis. So diffusion mein there was no membrane. Gases, water, fluid was moving from high concentration area to low concentration area. But when you put a selectively permeable membrane or a semi-permeable membrane, semi-permeable also means the same, and a solvent, a water molecule is moving from high concentration area to low concentration area, that is called as osmosis. Simple. Done. Last. Done. Am I audible now? So that is called as osmosis. Now, osmosis takes place in your daily life. For example, at night when you put raisins to soak in water, so they'll absorb lots of water. So what happens is, if you keep raisins in water, they will swell because they have taken up water, because water concentration was high here and it was low inside the cell or inside the raisin. Now instead of raisin, let's take a cell. Okay, or let's take your RBCs. RBCs are red blood cells or any cell. Let's keep it here. If I keep it in a solution which has high water concentration of water is high outside the cell and inside the cell it is low. So high outside, inside is low. Water has high concentration area outside. It will go inside and will swell the cell. And if there is no boundaries, much harder or rigid boundaries, the cell will burst also in some cases. Okay. Next, if I keep a cell in a concentration, in a solution which has low water concentration. What do you mean by low water concentration? Can you give me an example where a solution has low water concentration? Saline, sugar syrup, chashni. So in that, water concentration is less and the solute concentration or the solid, salt, sugar, their concentration is high. So if I keep in that area, so if inside is high, outside is low, water will come out and the cell will such solutions where water concentration is high outside and low inside. Such solutions where water concentration is high outside and low inside, which makes water to move inside and swell, are called as hypotonic solutions. Such solutions which has low water concentration outside. That means there's lots of sugar, salt inside the solution. Let's take a water solution where there is lots of salt and sugar, and you keep your mango inside it. So it will lose water. While preparing this pickles, करेला की सब्जी जब बनती है तो उसमें नमक डालते हैं बहुत सारा, right? Why they do that? Bitter gourd pe they put lots of salt because they want the water to come out of it, right? So same thing is happening here. Low water concentration outside, high inside, water will come out, cell will shrink, and such solutions are called as hypertonic solution. So if you want to keep your cell as it is, in the same shape, you don't want it to swell, you don't want it to shrink, so you want it to remain as it is, so you will have to keep it in a solution which has same concentration both sides. Means whatsoever is going inside, the same amount will come outside. Such solutions are called as iso, means same. So they are called as isotonic solutions. Done. So permeability of cell membrane or the transport across cell membrane can take place in three ways depending upon the outside concentration. If outside concentration of water is high, water will move inside, that is in hypotonic conditions. If amount of water is or concentration of water is less inside, high inside, it will come out in hypertonic condition. And if it is same, then it will remain same both sides and it is isotonic solutions. Do such transport need energy? No. They are called as passive transport. And this process is called as osmosis. So osmosis is a type of passive transport. Done? Done. So first is passive transport. Passive transport doesn't need energy. First way is diffusion, where gases will diffuse from high concentration region to low concentration region. Oxygen enters inside the cell and CO2 leaves outside. That is because of diffusion. Next, osmosis is special type of diffusion which is occurring in the cells due to presence of a semi-permeable membrane, and it can happen in three ways: hypotonic solution, isotonic solution and hypertonic solution. Hypotonic में hypo o it will swell, hyper it will shrink, and iso it will remain same. Easy way, right? Stupid but easy way to remember in exam conditions. यही stupid चीजें exam में याद आएंगी. Thus osmosis is special case of diffusion where semi-permeable membrane is present. This is a diagram, the same diagram I have made. Animal cell and plant cell. Now unique thing is in animal cell there is shrinkage in hypertonic condition, same in isotonic, and swelling in hypotonic condition. Now plant cell में if you see the outer edge remains the same, inside if you keep it in hypertonic condition the cell will shrink from inside but outer wall is remaining the same. Means plants has an extra wall outside that is called as cell wall. So this is the plasma membrane, this red one, and outside it the black one is the cell wall. Now plants I say are very smart from animals. जितना दुख दर्द तुम लोग झेलते हो उससे कई ज्यादा प्लांट्स झेलते हैं. अपनी जिंदगी पे कभी लगता होगा बड़ी धिक्कार है, क्या जिंदगी दे दी, इतना दुख दर्द. But plants has to survive a lot of adverse conditions, and to survive those adverse conditions they have a rigid cell wall. Philosophy में ले तो अपने तरफ भी एक cell wall बना लो, right? Next is if it is kept in hypotonic condition, water will move inside, but in this case cell will not burst because of the presence of cell wall. Now in daily life, example of osmosis, unicellular freshwater organisms are there. Fishes are there which remain in freshwater conditions, and how do they regulate their inside water conditions is through osmosis. Next is absorption of water by plant roots. So outside water is more, inside in the root water is less, so it will move inside the root, and once it moves inside the root it will transport. Next is how it will transport once it comes inside the root. We'll do it tomorrow in tissues part. Next, raisins, they will swell. Pickle making, every house in India does this process. Add a lot of salt, sugar as a preservative. Why? Because you want to remove moisture from it, and removing moisture helps it increasing the shelf life. Next is RBCs, they burst in distilled water. movement of water in dialysis bag. What are dialysis bags or dialysis as a process? Where kidneys does not function, individuals go for dialysis. In your own body, osmosis is occurring, absorption is occurring in the kidney cells, and if they do not function properly, they have to go for an external procedure where they'll take out the blood and filter it again and put it inside the body. It's not like sara ek baar mein nikal lenge. There are tubes, and it is gone through dialysis bag where the toxic material comes out in the bag, and the purified blood or the filtered blood is again transported to body. Next, slugs of snails shrink when the salt is spreaded on them. किसी को लीच लग जाए तो उस पे नमक डालते हैं, it will get separated. Same process. Another type of passive transport is sometimes molecules cannot cross. They need someone else to help them cross. Just like we made proteins, right? There are certain molecules which cannot cross a lipid membrane because they are hydrophobic in nature. They are hydrophilic in nature. They are hydrophilic in nature, they'll go through water-like conditions. So there is a protein which makes a passageway. Red carpet बिछाते हैं ना जैसे आ जाओ. So वैसे ही there is a protein, a channel which facilitate them or which help them to cross the semi-permeable membrane. Such transport is called as facilitated transport. It is also occurring without energy. You do not need any energy for it because occurring from high concentration to low concentration. It's just that they cannot cross it. So they want someone else to help them. Okay, so that is called as facilitated transport. Next is active transport. Active transport mein you need energy, so there is consumption of energy. So for example, if you want to yourself to transport from here to your room, you do not need any energy. Abhi bhag ke jayenge sare. But if I have to keep you here, then need energy, and that is active transport. So in active transport, you need consumption of energy, means it is going reverse. It is not going spontaneously from high concentration zones to low concentration zone. For example, if a uphill transport has to happen from here to, you need energy. But if this transport has to take place, don't have to do. Automatically through a kick, it will kick भी नहीं मारोगे तो अपने आप it will slide down. Right? Don't need energy, but here you will need energy. So active transport takes place from low to high conditions. Example is, first is absorption of minerals. Water तो चला गया था, but minerals. Inside the root, concentration of mineral is high. In root, outside in soil, it is low. But roots has to absorb minerals from low to high. So there are active channels which are present there. Using energy, it takes up those minerals. First example. Second is sodium-potassium pump, which is there in your body, in muscles, in neurons, whensoever signal has to transport. So there is sodium and potassium pumps which are there, and any change in signal is because of these two ion concentration, and their concentration again changes due to active transport. So there is consumption of energy in that. Next is uptake of glucose in the intestine. Now see, it's an interesting fact. जब किसी को चक्कर आता है या कुछ तबीयत खराब होती है, you ask them to drink ORS, right? In dehydration conditions. Now ORS consists of salt and sugar both. If you give an individual just glucose water, it will not work. It will not work. You have to add salt to it. Why? The reason is that they both go together. Sodium ion and glucose go together, and you need energy for that transport. Therefore, it's an example of active transport. Next is the flexibility. As I've already told, the membrane is very flexible. Anything from outside can come inside. This body, the outside body, can come inside here. So cell is taking something inside. Endocytosis. So if amoeba, it is making a structure, let's say a food particle is here. So amoeba, what it will do? It will make some foot-like structure here around it and will slowly engulf it inside, will take it inside, and this process is called as endocytosis. When it consumes it, it expels it out, that is called as exocytosis. Cell is expelling it out. So this shows again the membrane is very flexible, right? Now this food, let's say it's a food particle which amoeba wants to take. When it eats it up, same process में endocytosis की एक type है. When it takes the food inside, it is eating the food. The term here is phagocytosis. So if a cell takes a food particle, a solid food particle, taking it inside, so in general term you will call it as endocytosis. But if it is a food particle, it is eating it for its own benefit, it is called as phagocytosis. If it would have been a liquid particle, penocytosis. It is called as penocytosis. I'm not joking, it is called as penocytosis. पिया उसने. Okay, it's a trick condition. It is called as penocytosis, but it's a funny word. पिया है तो liquid particle है तो penocytosis, solid है तो phagocytosis. Okay,